Just ahead on American Black Journal, an historic African-American district in Detroit gets the green light for a massive redevelopment. I'll talk with two of the principals involved with the project, plus details on the first book to chronicle the Flint water crisis. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.
Okay. Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. A huge part of Detroit's African-American heritage is getting a $52 million facelift. The city's Downtown Development Authority has selected 5 teams to transform the Paradise Valley Cultural and Entertainment District into a 24-hour walkable destination spot with a jazz club, boutique hotel, art galleries, upscale restaurant, and a whole lot more. The historic area on the city's Lower East Side was a predominantly African-American neighborhood with black-owned businesses from the 1920s until the 1950s. It was later demolished to make way for the construction of the Chrysler Freeway. Joining me now is one of the investors in the Paradise Valley project, art gallery owner George Nnamdi, along with Madi Toure, head of the real estate division for the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. Both of you, welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So Madi, I have been hearing about redeveloping Paradise Valley for, I don't know, a really long time here in Detroit. Now it's a reality. You've got the investment, you've got the right players. And what's important about this is not just preservation. This is, in a way, it's cultural preservation here in the city of Detroit.
Absolutely. It was something that was important to the mayor, and he called us into his office, Rod and myself, and said that now's the time to put out an RFP for Paradise Valley. And he said, not only that, I actually want to bring back the culture, the entertainment that Paradise Valley had at its height. Yeah. And I want it done during this timeline. And so that's what we were off to the races after that.
And the area that we're talking about, most people would know as Harmony Park right now.
Exactly.
That's sort of what we've called it since I was a kid, really.
Exactly.
Talk about what will be there when you guys are done.
So when we're done, we're looking at 5 projects. So what is now will be called the Harmony Club Hotel, which will be a 25 to 30 room boutique hotel with a 1920s feel, with art provided by George Nnamdi. And then we'll have La Casa, which actually opened up during the downturn around 2000. The cigar bar. So that will stay in place. It's actually been successful through the years. And he will do a minor renovation to his building. And then the largest project on the vacant lots will be a mixed-use project led by Hiram Jackson. And that'll be 60 units, luxury apartments, 12,000 square feet of retail, office, and parking. And then we've got Dennis Archer Jr., who's doing Harmony Point, and he will actually bring his headquarters for his company down to Paradise Valley, along with ground floor retail, restaurants, etc. And then the great story too is Rainey Hamilton, who has been in Paradise Valley now for 22 years.
The architect,
year, right? The architect, architectural firm, and he's been leasing his space for all of that time. And so now he actually gets to be an owner in Paradise Valley. And not only that, he's buying the adjacent lot next door to him, and he's adding an additional 16,000 square feet to his already 35,000 square feet with ground floor retail as well and a jazz bar. So it's going to be an exciting, vibrant area all coming together through this conservancy, which all of the owners came up with the idea of how to actually manage this area and make sure, at least for for a long period of time, that it will have that vibe that Paradise Valley had.
Yeah. George, you and I have talked a lot about what's changing in Detroit and what that change means for those of us who've been here for a long time. It seems like this project really captures some of the things that you've said to me in the past about how important it is to preserve the African-American nature of Detroit, especially this area. I mean, this was the black neighborhood in the city.
Well, I think it's this is an example of what we can do in this city. And I think this project is so important for the city because one, you have a major city that has an African American presence for decades, and you want to maintain that authenticity about the city because people, when they travel, the visitors, they're coming to see this authenticity of Detroit. They're not coming to see a sanitized version of this that they can get anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think this would also, this area, with the culture, with the arts that we would be planning to put in this area, it would become really a very major tourist attraction and also a job generator for Detroiters. And this highlight the city, its history, and also its future. So it's not like the art is like, oh, we're going to go back to 1920, have all these pictures, but we want to have art that's cutting edge, art that has a whole national and international feel to it. So people will say, let's just drive up to Paradise Valley, even if it's a day trip from Cleveland. Those type
Go
of
see what's going on there.
Right.
Talk about the curation of that art. How do you plan to do that?
Well, a couple things. I want to involve many local Detroit artists in the project, but also I want to make it also open to bringing in some national artists to do, because it's like what complements it is to have the local, national, and international artists of African descent that will be doing it. We will do it through the decorating of some and maybe a gallery in others. The hotel should just be a private place where you come in and you're like, oh, am I in a museum or am I in a, I didn't know this was a museum, but it's a hotel, because that's how the different hotels are now kind of moving, particularly the boutique hotels that's more established. They have that kind of presence. Is all about the art that really drives people there.
Well, and art was a part of the Paradise Valley that existed before, and Black Bottom, of course.
Right.
Which was,
well, I started in Paradise Valley, Harmony Park in 1981. That's where I started my gallery.
I don't think I knew that.
Yes, that's where I was. That's where the seafood market is.
Okay.
That was my space. I was there for about 3 or 4 years at that location.
Yeah. Monty, talk about the timeline here for when we'll see these things start to happen.
Well, things will start to happen. Hopefully, the next steps are to sign a development agreement with the developers in the next 30 days. After that, they should have, I'd say, 6 months to a year in planning and permitting, and then 24 months of construction. So that's
so soon. I mean,
absolutely.
Just in the next few years. Talk about how it fits in with the other things that are going on downtown. I mean, we've got a lot of movement in some areas of downtown. This is one that has been a little slower to turn that corner, right?
I think it's perfect timing. It's if you look at Lear's also moving to Paradise Valley, and then you've also got Hiram's got his real-time media that's moving there as well. So if you look at, and then obviously we're now doing Hudson's Block, which is also going to add not just life to that particular area, but to all of downtown.
And this is just a few blocks from there.
And this is just a few blocks from there. So it's perfect timing. I think that Paradise Valley will be a destination. If you look across the country, there are all these every major city has a cultural destination, if you will, and this will be Detroit's. I think people their first stop when they think about downtown, if it's done correctly, which I think it will be Paradise Valley, and then they will venture off to go to other places.
Yeah, and it sort of suggests that an inclusive model of redevelopment downtown can work.
Right.
That's what we've been
that's the whole beauty of it. We want to have this inclusive, diverse, a model that attracts everybody to it. This is the area that want to highlight the history, African American history, but you're really catering to the whole diverse community worldwide to come to Detroit, because I do think it's a destination.
I need to ask you about the Car Center, which is in Paradise Valley now, in one of the spots that you guys are targeting for redevelopment. A lot of folks upset that they're being moved and think that that's sort of an example of the other kinds of displacement, I suppose, the cultural displacement at least, of African American fixtures. The Car Center, of course, is a multicultural center there. Talk about why it's okay to move them out.
Well, I think first we have to say that, I mean, the Car Center is a great asset to the city of Detroit. And so we have committed to them to work with them to find a new space for them that is more in line with their business plan. I mean, now that building is about 35,000 square feet in need of renovation. The proposal that we did choose is they're putting close to $13 million of investment into the building.
That building.
And so that's why, and plus their financing strategy, we just didn't want to fall back with all that we were trying to create in Paradise Valley and have a situation where we weren't able to put that building into full production to help uplift that area. We bought those buildings the DDA did in 2006 when there was financial hardship in that area. It was only 20% vacancy. And part of that obviously is why that area wasn't successful. In order to make that a successful area, everything has to come online at the same time and contribute. So you need apartments, you need housing, you need the hotel, which adds 24/7 life to the area. All of that coming together is going to be the right thing for that area.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Steve, I remember when I first moved to Detroit, like in '76, and I went to Harmony Park at that time, and I just fell in love with Harmony. I thought this was the most gorgeous place to have in this city, and to be able to even come close, which we will be doing, to that kind of activity because it was very dense.
Yeah, right.
The parking lots weren't there then. It was buildings.
There were buildings on
more
those sites.
restaurants and everything. But it was so dense, and it's just like was such a hip zone. So to bring that back and have this opportunity to do this, have this opportunity so African Americans can also be, in terms of being investors into the project, it means a lot. It is very significant for the city, and it can help encourage other people to other projects in other areas also.
Sure. Talk about the public square itself. I live downtown, so I see what goes on there in terms of, there's events. I mean, there's a lot of people using that now.
Right.
Is that going to continue, or are you sort of investing in changing the physical look of that park as well?
No, absolutely. So currently now with the BID's help, they actually invest about $75,000 to program Harmony Park. So that will continue, and the goal is to actually do more than double that because I think that's what's needed in order to have 365 programming of that, similar to Capitol Park and Campus Martius, with with art and concerts, etc. So that will continue, and that will continue through the Conservancy. So they will actually put together a calendar, working with George, to figure out how best to make that a symbol for cultural and entertainment. And I think it all starts in that park, quite frankly, and bleeds out into the retail.
Right, right. All right, so I will look forward to hanging out there soon,
Absolutely.
right? All right, thank you both for being here, and good luck. Yeah.
All right.
Coming up next on American Black Journal, a new book tells the story of the Flint water crisis and how the government failed the city's residents. But first, here's a look at some important moments in Detroit's Black history.
I'm Ken Coleman with a look back at African American life in Detroit. This week in 1986, Mary Jarrett Jackson of the Detroit Police Department was promoted to Deputy Chief, becoming the first woman to serve in that role. In 1963, Cynthia Scott, an unarmed 24-year-old black prostitute, was killed in an altercation with a white Detroit police officer. And in 1931, Della Reese Early, also known as Della Reese, was born in Detroit.
To come my way.
These are significant events this week in Detroit's Black history, taken from the book On This Day, African American Life in Detroit.
There's a new book out that chronicles the Flint water crisis and the government's role in the lead poisoning of the city's drinking water. The book's titled Poison on Tap: How Government Failed Flint and the Heroes Who Fought Back. It provides the first comprehensive look at the tragedy through a compilation of journalism reports from Bridge Magazine, which is the bi-weekly news and analysis publication from the Center for Michigan. Here to tell us about the book is contributing reporter Chastity Pratt-Dawsey of Bridge Magazine. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about this book is that it really is like a timeline. I mean, it's like a narrative from the very first reports of something seeming like it was wrong with the water in Flint up through sort of the present day. And you really do get a sense of how many opportunities there were for somebody to stand up and say, something's not right here. You really do get a sense of, even when people knew something was wrong, that they didn't do what was supposed to happen. And then you see sort of parallel along that is this immense suffering that is visited upon the
Absolutely.
people of Flint.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. People are going to be able to look at this book years down the line and say, what happened? Oh, wait, let me turn to this page
Right.
and I can find out what happened. Who said what? When did this it's a wonderful, just chronological recording just the facts of what happened and when, and it's really important because, you know, years down the line, you know, people start to try and rewrite
People forget,
history.
right? On purpose. They forget on purpose, as we might say,
Exactly.
right?
And this, I mean, we're still in the crisis, so to put everything down that we know to date and continue to add the facts as they come, as things happen, that's really important.
Yeah. The other thing that you guys do in this book that's really key is a function that you guys perform during political campaigns normally, and that's the Truth Squad, right? Looking at what people say and comparing it to what actually happened, or comparing what they said to maybe what they said before.
Right.
And you find lots of instances here where the truth is something different than what we were told.
Absolutely. The Bridge Magazine Truth Squad, it's sort of like we go in and we look at what people said and what the facts are and compare the two, not so much to catch people in a lie, but to give context to what people are saying and to, you know, just basically lay out where people might be fudging or, you know, purposely leaving out context and details. And in the instance of this book, we allow the Truth Squad to come in and analyze some of the emails. Oh, this is what they really meant when they said, you know, we didn't know anything,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and we refer back to future and past emails to sort of give context to what government officials were saying when they were saying it, and whether they were telling the full truth or leaving out important details.
Do you feel like the book gives people a better sense of the shared responsibility and to what extent it is shared? I mean, that's been one of the things that we've argued a lot about, is who is exactly at fault? Was it the emergency manager?
Right.
Was it the Department of Environmental Quality? Was it the EPA? Was it the governor's staff who sort of sitting back watching all this stuff happen in these departments and on these emails for so long didn't respond? Do people get a better sense of where they should put the blame?
This book lays out the accountability across the board. Where did MDEQ go wrong? Where did the governor's people go wrong? Where did the governor go wrong? Where did the emergency manager go wrong? I mean, when you lay out the entire chronology and all of the emails and everything people said, it becomes sort of clear, but the Truth Squad steps in to say, here you go, right here, this is where the MDEQ went wrong.
Right.
And so the blame or the accountability that is shared by everyone who has come into contact with this from a governmental standpoint is laid bare.
Yeah. One of the questions that people ask me all the time about this is the role that the emergency manager law played in switching the drinking source to the Flint River, and whether having displaced the elected officials, that there weren't the kinds of checks and balances in place that you might have had if it were the mayor. Now, of course, the mayor of Flint I've seen pictures of him drinking Flint water. Yeah, the former mayor, Dane Walling, drinking out of a glass, talking about how great it was to switch, but he was not in control. At the time, Darnell Early was.
Absolutely, and what we talk about too is not so much who decided to make the switch. I mean, you know, there's argument, oh, the council has some culpability in that as well. Really what we talk about is who decided that we would not use anti-corrosive chemicals?
Well, right, and that's the key decision. That's right.
That's the key decision, and there were city officials and as we know now, vendors or contractors in on all of that, and so there has been a question if you had a city council that was really involved, would they have been able to examine and sound off on all of that?
And think it through.
And think it through as well, so that's all in there.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things the book does also is focus on the people who, from the beginning, said, this is a big deal, and I got to get people's attention. And it's not just powerful people who did that. In some cases, it's really people on the outside of the decision-making process who were the ones who pushed hard enough to get people to respond, to get the media to take notice.
Right.
The heroes that you guys...
You talk about powerful people, the citizens, the regular everyday folks who were just disempowered by the emergency manager situation, took back the power and said, look, this water's not good. We don't care what you say. And
it's brown, it smells.
It's brown. Who wants to drink brown water?
Right.
And for a long time, you know, everyone knows that was ignored. But when they got the attention of the ACLU, when they got the attention of Mark Edwards, when they got the attention of Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, you know, people who did have some ability to, you know, test the water
right.
and look
what's
at the
going
lead
on.
testing for the children, then we really know and understand just how powerful the regular folks in Flint were in making this and saving themselves.
Yeah. You mentioned testing the water. Of course, those tests led us to understand that there was a unacceptable level of lead in the drinking water, and that has a really profound effect, of course, on children if they drink it. But there's a lot of other things going on with the water in Flint, and you wrote a story this week in Bridge about the fact that we really haven't reached a final conclusion about all of those things, that the Legionnaires issue and some other health issues may end up being connected to the water supply.
Absolutely. And the thing about the book is that we're able to update it. You know, Schuette filed a civil lawsuit last week. We're able to update that, the Attorney General. And the story that I wrote this week, we're going to update the book in a month or so and put this story in the book as well. And people, when they buy it in a month or so, they'll have, you know, an updated version. We're going to keep doing this. It's a living thing.
It's a different way of publishing a book.
Absolutely.
Very 21st century.
But the story that we ran this week, it talks about the case of Bertie Marble, and she's the matriarch in a well-known basketball family in Flint. Everyone in Flint knows this family. They've had 2 NBA players and legendary basketball players. And she died in the middle of the Legionnaires' crisis. She died at McLaren. And the questions that are raised by her case and raised in our story are, really, do we know how many people died from Legionnaires? Why is it that no one is talking about the increase in pneumonia and flu deaths that happened during the crisis? 60% unprecedented jump in those people dying during the crisis. And some experts will say, well, you know what? When you look at Legionnaires and the confirmed cases, the 91 confirmed cases are definitely the tip of the iceberg. There were more people.
There are more people.
There are more people out there, and very definitely some of those people who died of pneumonia could have been Legionnaires people who died because of the water.
Right. One of the things that's frustrating about this is, of course, that we don't see the state or state officials seeming to pivot the way they should to try to figure that out. I mean, it's almost as if they're still not asking the right questions. Is that a fair assessment?
It appears as if they're not asking it, but we don't know because they won't answer our questions.
They won't say anything to you anyway,
It's sort of like when the Legionnaires outbreak was going on. They're not really talking a lot about what's going on.
So whose job is that? I mean, whose responsibility is it to say, hey, look, there's a spike in pneumonia deaths in Flint during this time period? I don't know, maybe it has something to do with the water. Who's the person who should be making that connection?
Well, very definitely Legionnaires is a reportable disease, so the state health department and county health department. And, you know, if you're talking about water, you're talking about MDEQ. You're talking about all of these agencies that have treated this situation like a hot potato from the very beginning. They're all involved in trying to, or not trying to figure out whether or not these pneumonia deaths are also part of the problem.
Speaking of trying to change our behavior, talk about some of the lessons that you think are evident in the book about the way we ought to be managing government and public health in Michigan based on this crisis.
One of our staffers, Nancy Derringer, says, you know, treating government like it's a business is like, you know, confusing a horse with a dog. I've repeated this. This is a great line. And that's what we saw happen here. You were treating, the emergency manager law was treating the system as a business. And democracy was suspended in a lot of ways. And that lesson is continuing to haunt us today. You know, the emergency manager is gone, but living with this Flint water crisis is very definitely have an effect of having lived through emergency management and the suspension of democracy to a large degree.
And they say in Lansing that we're going to revisit that. We haven't really seen them do it yet, right?
We haven't, and this is the Republicans' baby. They have to own it because the people in the state of Michigan said they didn't want an emergency manager law, and the state turned around and brought it back. So it's, you know, it's at their feet to deal with.
All right. Thanks very much for being here, and we'll look for more updates in the book.
Thank you.
All right. That's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org. Plus, you can connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. And you can hear our program on WDET 1019 FM. We'll see you next time.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
At DTE Energy, we believe that we have a greater responsibility. We believe that being part of a community means being involved in the fabric of that community, investing time, effort, and resources in the communities we serve. DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of American Black Journal.